Hello, and greetings to everyone for another season of The Gilded Age, show that never stops showing how the 1% have always been the 1%. It took an hour to put up the boots that stood on the poor people's necks this season, except in 1883. By season, I clearly mean the opera season. It's that other season again. Bara Russell is the last person on the list. At the Academy of Music, there is a line for a box where the best opera singers go to see world-class shows. If there is one thing that true Yorkers like to do, it's getting directions. Other things that people in New York enjoy. A shop that makes you think of the past is being used for this. So, here are tour, which are located near Union Square at the corner of 14th, and the Real Academy is across the street in Iring Place. And Music was a fancy opera house, and it was torn down in 1926 to make room for the Cone Building with the big clock tower. If W. McAllister's 400 had known that one of their major class fights would center on a piece of land that is now across from Traer, they would not have allowed it to happen. Joe's, they were probably rolling over in their graves at the beginning of the show. April 1 people from all walks of life in New York can be seen going to church and being responsible by not rekindling their old violent rivalries in the name of religion. However, Mrs. Astor and Agnes still find it hard to believe that the Russells are only a row away. Bara is mad that she can't get a box at the prestigious Academy of Music, even though everyone there says welcome to the Lord's home. Even though Berth has been kissing Mrs. Astor for a long time and their kids, Glades and Carrie, are good friends, he doesn't have the background of money, honey, and the Academy of Music, which may be the purest form of that. Mrs. Astor is still staying away from her, while she tries to win Mrs. Astor over. Bertha invites everyone to tea, but Mrs. Astor praises Bara for her efforts. She can't do everything in order to fit in. Can do at the opera. Mrs. Astor gets angry when Bertha tells her that she just bought a box at the brand new Metropolitan Opera House, telling her that she will be losing any trust she has built up with the old guard in 1966. The building for the Metropolitan Opera, which was at 1411 Broadway at 39th. The street was torn down today, and what's now there is an office building with a co-working area. I'm glad it's not a Chase Bank. Bara tells Mrs. Astor that she is planning an opera enthusiast dinner so that everyone can continue talking. However, Bertha also plans to use the event to bring in rich friends who like the same kinds of music she does but feel like they are being left out. What George Russell says, his wife is pretty funny, and you don't even like opera. Berth is basically making a group called the Nouveau to bring together people who were turned down for admission to the Academy and persuade them to buy boxes at the brand new Metropolitan Opera House. It's funny that Bara is now pushing for young and wealthy people to join unions when her husband, George the Train System Robber Baron, is already in a fight with his unionized workers. Instead, he talks about his own problems, including some difficult business in Pittsburgh. Please, George, give them a break. All they want is to avoid dying at work. Unfortunately, he can't do that, and when he meets fellow Robert Baron J. Gold, they find that, despite being competitors in the same field, they share a goal of opposing the right of their employees to health care and an 8-hour workday instead of turning against them. They think that the employees will start fighting with each other and against them. Anyway, it's great to see you instead of going to the Easter service in their Brooklyn neighborhood, you old jerk. Peggy Scott is going to Philadelphia with her parents, Dorothy and Arthur. There will be a service for them on Sunday at the same time as Thomas's funeral. Thomas was Peggy's son, and her father had sent him away in secret and told her about it. Had died in child, however, even though Peggy wanted to see Thomas, and we knew about that situation at the end of the previous season. The child and his adoptive mother both died of scarlet fever during that time. Because the other characters are so busy, Peggy's loss of feelings for her father acts as an emotional cushion for the show. She may be the only character on the show who isn't serious or upset about her class. While everyone else is arguing about the opera in their mansions, Peggy and her mother blame Arthur for Thomas's death, even though Arthur thought he was moving the boy away for Peggy's own good. They think the boy would not have gotten sick if he had stayed with Peggy. They all feel bad about it. But Peggy needs some time away from her family. Because of it, Petty tells her par of guilt for too long, and she asks Moran if she can work as Agnes's secretary again at the Van Ron house, a job she quit because Armstrong, the housekeeper for the Van Ris, tried to fire her because she was black. Moran Brooke had secrets last season, and Peggy had them instead of everyone else. Mara isn't sure if she can meet up with Ad's nephew, Dashiell Montgomery, and his 14-year-old daughter Frances, when Aunt Agnes finds out they are in New York. Agnes, who Moran knows will not like it, finds out that she has been teaching in a girls' school without being seen. Things get more complicated when Mary finds out that Frances is one of her students. It's rude and mean of Moran to call Aunt Agnes that. She snaps back. Moran gets ripped a new one by Agnes for her lies, which go about as badly as you can expect. Aunt almost passes out from the noise of the lone heir to the Van Rye dynasty. Agnes's son, it's Oscar Van Rye, came up with a plan to court Glades Russell. In the previous season, he saw her as a way to marry a new rich person, take advantage of her youth, grow a beard on her, and keep dating his boyfriend John Adams. This season, Glades is icing Oscar. John Adams seems to have moved on with his life now, and Oscar just wants to drink his problems away. Unfortunately, Oscar hit on the wrong guy at the bar on Easter Sunday. After Prohibition, businesses were not allowed to be open on Sundays, which is why he got beat. He tells John Adams that he was robbed, but he doesn't tell his family. When he comes over to comfort Oscar, he tells the truth. Oscar knows that if he stays true, the Van Rye name dies with him. He keeps to himself and dates Adams for the rest of his life. His family can't handle that, so he is doing everything he can to get closer to Glades, even though he knows he will probably cheat on her behind her back. He could have inherit with Adams, at least with her. Oscar asks for set. Aurora Fane throws a tea party to honor their cousin, Dashiell Montgomery, who has moved back to New York and invited all the Glades. The party is an opportunity for Oscar to let Glades know that he can also promise her freedom and that she won't have to answer to him. He makes the proposal without a ring because he sees it more as an understanding than a love act. Russell's dinner in support of the new opera house is basically the episode's climax. The dinner was to support the new Met, and Mrs. Astor may have also been there to see that Bertha means business. In order to get a seat at the head of high society's table, Mrs. Astor had to make the evening a night for opera lovers. If you prefer, you could say that Mrs. Astor and the Academy had messed with his present many times as the guest arrived. Have you searched the city for the disappointed wealthy? She asks Mrs. Astor what she should send. When M. Fish asks Bertha why she has everyone together, she says, "I just want Mrs. Astor to understand the competition the Academy will face." After that, Bertha brings out Christine Nilsson, the biggest opera diva of the day, to surprise the guests. Everyone is shocked. But Miss Astor is especially so. Not only are Kristen and Nilsson very talented, but she only acts at the Academy when she is in New York. It's a surprise. No, that's not nice. That's Bertha for you. Robert C. Leonard has joined the group as the church rector, Robert C. Leonard, and you have to enjoy it when the gossip is just that. Tell Zenz Ada and Marion that he is going to be the minister at a wedding. When they find out that Bingham and Marion's ex-Tom Ranks are getting married, they all get angry.